Yes, good morning, Michelle, and morning to the viewers of Newsroom Africa. Well, I think of it as, being a student who's facing a very tough exam, and you study really hard. And then when you get into the exam room, the 4 essay questions you'd prepared for are not on the paper. That's how what our experience was. And you've got to marshal your thinking, replan, reorganize very quickly in order to answer those surprise essay questions. That's what faced South Africa. And all credit to South Africa and President Ramaphosa in that the reaction was very sharp, very focused, and very relevant for what Africa needed at that time.
I think you've put it exactly right, Minister. But the question, I suppose, is then, does it mean that the president had a whole range of other issues that he wanted to use his term at the helm of the AU for?
Well, while what is most popularly known is the response to COVID-19, the president was very busy behind the scenes on a range of other issues. So the objective of silencing the guns was not neglected. We were in constant contact with the protagonists in Libya. We played a key role in the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam negotiations. We were engaged in ensuring, along with the authorities in the Central African Republic, that there wouldn't be a return to conflict, although there's been that reaction by the opposition to the outcome of the elections. But South Africa played a key role in supporting the administrative processes toward the election in the Central African Republic. President Ramaphosa continued as the main facilitator of the peace process in Lesotho and concluded the negotiated outcome, which is now being implemented by their parliament. So there was a lot of work which was unseen that was going on, while at the same time focusing on the key aspects of COVID-19 that needed a response. Remember that there was the health response, which President Ramaphosa developed responses to, but there was also the economic impact that needed to be addressed. Many countries on the continent rely on loans from international banking and other financial institutions, and we had to find a way of relieving African countries, particularly the poorest, from interest and debt repayments. So the debt standstill initiative was a very important intervention by the president, as was the appointment of economic envoys to engage with all international multilateral finance institutions to ensure that they do assist Africa to have the liquidity necessary to help recover economies that were hard hit by lockdown and other restriction measures.
I mean, Minister, if we think about some of the reflections on in President Cyril Ramaphosa's weekly newsletter this week, where he talked about our year at the helm of the AU, you've mentioned Lesotho and our interventions in Libya and the Central African Republic as well. It was interesting to note that in his weekly newsletter on these reflections, he didn't talk much about any interventions in the war in Ethiopia's Tigray region. He didn't talk about the ongoing attacks in Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province.
Well, I keep having a very tough time trying to explain that not all diplomacy is conducted in public. So you wouldn't, talk about everything. You may read about it at a later stage, maybe in the history books. But I assure you that South Africa is active in all the areas that you mentioned. With respect to Tigray, you're aware that President Ramaphosa appointed 3 former presidents to serve as his envoys, to meet with the Ethiopian government as well as the administration of Tigray, the various parties. We have had engagement through President Ramaphosa with the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, and it has been agreed that the envoys will return to Addis, but also that they will actually visit the Tigray region. So our efforts are ongoing. With respect to Mozambique, we are continuing to work closely with Mozambique, which is a very close collaborator with South Africa. But this is being done also in the context of SADC. As you know, Mozambique is the current chair of SADC. And at the last summit, it was agreed that Mozambique must specify exactly what form of assistance is needed, what is lacking in their response armor, given the incursion that they're confronted with. Is it air power? Is it maritime assistance or intelligence and other services? What exactly should we assist them with? And we're all waiting for Mozambique to give us a concrete response. That doesn't mean we're not engaged. It doesn't mean our security services are not working together, but we wouldn't megaphone diplomacy those issues. There are some things that you do rather more quietly than others.
Yeah, absolutely. And Minister, how do you explain that to people on the continent who are looking at the AU, looking at the various issues faced by the countries on the continent and saying, we wish that the AU was more prominent in speaking to challenges A, B, and C. Balancing this need for diplomacy, not all of it happening in the public eye, versus the AU at least seen to be playing an integral role on the continent.
Well, Michelle, most think tanks and academics in international relations are aware in greater detail of what is happening. So if you read international journals, you will see that they do report on the activities of the African Union. The African Union has several organs as part of the organization that do a wide range of work. And I wish perhaps Newsroom Africa could look at the annual report of these organs so that you have a look at the wide range of work that is being done. In fact, at the recent meeting where I was serving as chair of the Executive Council, I expressed the view that perhaps we have taken on far too much and we need to really refine some of what we're doing. But there's a great deal of activity, and I believe many of the observers do know what we're doing. It might be that what they'd like the AU to do is not what it's possible for an organization of peers to do, because I get the sense that sometimes our detractors expect us to act as an opposition, so wherever there's a problem between a governing party and an opposition party, they want the AU to take the side of the opposition. We cannot do that. But where we can assist and provide support, the African Union certainly attempts to do so.
Great opportunity there for us to take an in-depth look at the work of the AU with your help in the future, Minister. But before I let you go, this issue of South Africa losing all its bids for positions in the AU Commission over last weekend, how do we read that?
Well, the AU selection process has certain rules associated with it. Firstly, there's equity in terms of gender, but second, no region may occupy more than 2 positions within the commission. And thirdly, the region that becomes chairperson and the one that becomes deputy chairperson cannot occupy any of the positions. Fourth, the election of commissioners after the selection process is finalized is done according to the alphabetical name of each of the commissions. So we began with agriculture. Southern Africa had a female candidate. She was successfully elected. The next was the Economic Commission. Southern Africa had a male candidate from Zambia who was an incumbent. He was successfully elected. We couldn't get agreement in SADC that one of our incumbents must withdraw to allow a new commission appointee. So once we had two in the first two elections and both were elected, it meant all other candidates from Southern Africa could not be considered and were in fact eliminated, as happened with West Africa, as happened with Central Africa.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that clarity on that issue, Minister. It did come across as perhaps a lost opportunity to our country. Thanks again for your time on the AM report.